Welcome back to the Hobby Hood. We're going to be looking today at how to set up our area. It is important that if we want to do the highest quality work with a dip pen, that we ensure that our workstation is set up correctly. So for this session, you're going to need your writing slant and 3 to 4 pages of paper to cover your writing slant if you need it. And we'll talk more later about whether or not you need it or not. You're going to need 1 sheet of paper that is going to be longer than your widest anticipated regular work. You're going to need a roll of masking tape or some other similar tape which is easy to undo, change, and is low residue. You're going to need your pen holder and your pen nib. I recommend for beginners a Speedball C2. I don't have any C2s left right now. I'm using a C0, which is a slightly larger nib than the C2. You're going to need your ink. Today I'm going to be using Noodler's Catfish Black ink. It's one of my favorites to use. It works really well. You're going to need paper to write on. I'm going to be using Strathmore sketch paper for this demo. It should be just fine for practice and getting things pretty good. You can get sharp lines on it. You're going to need a pencil or a pen, and you're going to need a ruler or some kind of straight edge to be able to draw your lines. I would also recommend, but it's totally optional, that you get a square or a T-square. So once you have those items together, come back to the video and we'll move on how to set it all up. First, we're going to consider what our writing surface is. We need to have a balance between a firm surface that will allow the pen to have a good response and feedback to the pen, but we also need a little softness to that surface as well. Most of you are probably going to be working on a plastic or a wood surface, and they can be very nice and smooth, which we want. We definitely want that as smooth of a surface as we can have, but they're often going to be too hard. To correct for that, you're going to lay 3 or 4 sheets of paper down on your writing surface and then tape the sides just in place. This could be newspaper, but you want to make sure that your top page doesn't have any ink or printing on it, because you don't want ink to smudge off on the back of the page you're going to be working with. In my situation, because I have this drafting table, this surface is just fine, and it's made for pen work. So I don't need to have it covered. It's pretty good. You might also have a writing surface that is leather. And if you're working with leather, more than likely it's going to be fine without needing a cover over it as well. Let's talk about body position. When you're sitting at your slant, you want to get your chair and your body in a comfortable position to your slant. Where's your chair going to be? My chair has wheels on it, and so you want to keep that in mind as you're working. Is your chair going to be moving on you? You might need to change your chair. So find your comfortable sitting position first, and then place your forearm on your surface at a point where you're going to make about a 90-degree angle with your arm, your upper arm, and your forearm. I don't want it way up here where it's too high, and I don't want it down low where it's a shallow angle. So I put my forearm on my writing slant, making a 90-degree angle. Your writing is going to come primarily from your shoulder. When you're making your letters, you need this to be able to move. So that body position of comfortable with 90 degrees is important to get. If you can't get this position, you're going to have a hard time getting consistent calligraphy from line to line to line to line, but also you're going to get more tired and you're not going to be able to do calligraphy for as long. So get comfortable so that doing calligraphy is a relaxing and joy-filled experience for you and not a chore. After you have your 90-degree position of your arm figured out, I want to get a pen in my hand. It could just be a stick, but you're going to hold it as you would when you do calligraphy. In your comfortable grip spot, wherever that is on your shaft, you want your thumb and forefinger on the sides, and your middle finger will support from the bottom of the pen. This is going to be fairly familiar to those of us who still remember handwriting anyway. So holding my pen with my hand and my arm at the comfortable spot, I want to see just where the tip touches the writing surface. This is the place that we're going to be writing. A little bit left and a little bit right to it, but that's the center of our work line and all of that. I want to take note and mark that position. Now you're going to get that longer sheet of paper than you would normally be working with, and I'm going to fold it in half. And I would call this doing a hot dog fold, where you have a hot dog bun, it's long, whereas hamburgers are flat. So anyway, now that my spot is marked and noted, I am going to get my longer sheet of paper, and I want to put it down about an inch or an inch and a half below that spot. And I'm going to do my best to get it level, which will help me when I'm writing. Our left-handed friends, oftentimes they will set this up so as they're writing with their left hand, if you're going straight across, you're dragging the pen. And many left-handers can do it that way. I have a lot of friends that will turn and they'll work sideways and their hand will be coming down as they write, and they learn all of their letters sideways. I have one friend who's left-handed who actually learned how to do everything completely upside down. And he would write from the right to the left upside down the whole way, it takes a lot of work to do that. But our left-handed friends, unfortunately, have to do a little bit more experimental work to figure out what's going to work best for them. So, get your page put down, then you're going to get your masking tape out, and you're going to just tape that in place over your writing position. And I just slid mine around a little bit. I want to redo that. And I want to get this sheet on my writing surface as tight as I can. I don't want a lot of slack underneath here, because my writing or my work is actually going to slide behind this sheet. Now, what this sheet is doing might not be clear to you yet. I'll get this taped down. So when I'm getting it tight, I'll pull on this side and I'm going to hold it flat so that it's as tight as I can get it across here. When we're writing, because we're going to be writing at this line, my hand is going to be going back and forth, and my paper is going to come up underneath the sheet, each one line at a time. So if I'm writing and I don't have this protector sheet down, the oils and smudge and grubbiness from my hand is going to get onto my work. So we don't want that, so it goes on this guide sheet. It also gives me a place where I can make little tick marks and things and help get the ink flowing out of my pen. The most common type of pen holder you're going to find for a dip pen is going to be a straight kind of shaft, and on the end you're going to see either some tines or a circle or something, and you buy them just like this. This one is an older one. It's a wooden handle, and it's straight. Available at a lot of craft stores. You're going to find these tapered, kind of rounded handles. A lot of pen makers will do hand-turned pens and out of wood, and they're absolutely beautiful. And I think I might have shown you in a previous video. This one is, in particular, is my favorite. It's a wooden handle with a cork tip on it, but the cork does pick up drips, and so it gets inky and dark, and that's the way it is. So you just choose your pen handle, and then you buy your nibs in different sizes for your work. The majority of the nibs that I use, like this is a browse nib. It has two parts. It has the pen itself, and then it has this little part here that slides onto the pen, and that is Our Pen Reservoir. And so if I'm cleaning, I can take it completely apart, and I slide this forward so that the reservoir is just back from the tip, maybe a 1/16 of an inch or so, just a little bit of space. The larger the nib, a little bit more space might be put in there, and you can dial it in. You'll learn your pens as you use them. So if you're too far back or too far forward, you'll start to get the feel for that. But if you remember in the introduction video, the nibs that I recommended you get were speedball nibs. And speedball nibs in particular need to be set up. On a speedball nib, it's all one piece when you buy it. There's a little brass clip underneath that gives it some support. The reservoir is a flat brassy bit on top. And I've got a picture here. Hopefully it'll show up well on your screen. You can see what I'm talking about. When you buy a new speedball nib, but you want to check this with all your nibs, if you notice that reservoir top is very, very flat. And between the pen top and that reservoir, I don't have much space in there. So what I want to do is grab a pair of tweezers, or I use sometimes a small flathead screwdriver, and just wedge it in between that space and bring it towards the tip so it's back out maybe 1/8 of an inch to a quarter, 3/16 of an inch from the tip of the reservoir inside. And I'm gently going to bend a curve into that reservoir. Now, I don't want an insane curve, but here's another picture with a nib on my pen. And hopefully you can see that reservoir is much more open now, so we can actually hold some ink there. I want the reservoir tip to be the point of connecting with the pen. I don't want a lot of that reservoir flat against the pen. And any type of reservoir for any pen style, I just need that tip of the reservoir to be flat on or right on the pen itself. So check your reservoirs, make sure you have enough room that you're actually going to be able to hold ink in the reservoir, and that you don't have the reservoir laying flat on your top. And the final thing you need to know about any new nib is that they come from the manufacturer with, those nice tarnishing coatings and things like that. And those coatings on a new nib will not allow the ink to stick to the pen. It will bead up like water. And we're not going to get good ink flow that way. So we need to clean our pen nibs. There's a few different ways you can do it. If you're brave, you can just stick your nib in your mouth and suck on it, and your saliva can help break down that coating. I do that personally only when I'm in a rough spot of needing to get a new nib together and I have nothing else available. You can put it in a bottle of like Windex or something like that. No, not a bottle, but a little dish of Windex, and clean that thoroughly with Windex. But my preferred thing that I will go to is I'll put some vinegar, just normal household white vinegar in a dish, and I'll dip the pen in there for 10 to 15 seconds and then thoroughly clean and dry it off. Anytime that we're done using our pen, we want to thoroughly dry our pen so that it will not rust, and we don't want ink to dry on the nib itself. For that, in my box, I always keep at least one kind of flour sack towel around so I can dry off my nibs really well. With speedball nibs, I'll take it and I'll fold a little corner of it. And with the corner, I start at the back of it, and I can rub it on each side of the reservoir. I can get up underneath there and dry it off. If it's a 2-part pen, I can take it apart and dry both of those pieces. It can take a little bit to get the ink to flow from our pen, so it is really important that you've cleaned all of the coating off your nib. To get started, we're going to take our ink, and I might have missed it in the intro to the video, but if you have a inexpensive paintbrush, not like the really coarse synthetic bristles, but something kind of fine and nice, a paintbrush is going to help you control your ink. And you're going to you dip your brush into your ink, and then you use the brush across the top of your nib, and you load your nib in that gap we made between that little flat bit and the top of our pen. And we want to load that up with as much ink as we can. So you just fill up that space, and you're not going to see it in the video very well, I don't think, but when you look at the pen, it curves down, and at the base of my where the nib starts to curve down, that's about the point in which I have ink all the way through. Sometimes starting out, it can be helpful to take your brush and paint the underside and the top to try to get some ink through the tines of your pen. So we're going to just make some little marks to get some ink to flow, and I can use my guide sheet there. Take your paper and slide it behind your guide sheet. And just leave a little bit out like that. And we are going to just practice and try to get the feel for ink coming off of our pen. We can make some little tick marks, just like this. Try making some little marks coming down with our pen flat. The goal, if you can see it in the video, is on some of these marks, I'm not getting full width coverage. And we just need to practice a little bit and get the feel for the pen of how hard and soft we want to press. And so we're just little tick marks to get the feel for it. Even with a cleaned off pen, it can take a little bit to really break it in. So I'm just making some marks. I'm not doing anything in particular. Once we're comfortable with getting the ink to flow a little bit, and we're getting some results, we're going to start making straight lines. And the serifs are useful because they help us get the ink flowing as we begin our letters. So, start practicing them now, the serifs now. We're going to try to make straight vertical lines. So we make a little tick mark, and we're going to come straight down and make a little tick mark to end it. And that will help us get crisp tops and bottoms to our lines. Just like this. You can use the back of your paintbrush to help hold your paper down. So we have tick marks. We can have the rounded serifs. And as you're practicing these serifs, we're wanting the vertical strokes, but we're also wanting to try to get serifs to look the same from stroke to stroke. Just like this. Our serif is not any more than maybe half our pen width long. So when I start it, I'm just making a little movement to get the ink flowing, and then I'm going to make my stroke. Now there you can see that stroke looks very bad. It's thin, the edge is ragged. That's one of the signs you can look for if you end up with that. Hopefully you can catch it before you get to that point, but you need more ink. So you dip your brush into your ink and you load your nib up some more. Using the brush is really going to help you control your ink. You can dip your pen straight into your bottle like this, and we can load it up that way, and we can use our bottle edge to try to get some of the extra ink off of it. But it is more difficult to keep your pen clean when you do it that way, and you can end up with more blotches. So we have a couple of tick marks, a couple of rounded ones, and let's do some slab serifs. The slab serifs were the ones that just went sideways a little bit. So just half a pen width over. We're looking for vertical strokes and serifs that look the same. We had bracketed serifs, if we remember. And then sometimes when we have those little bits, we can come back with the corner of our pen and fill in those gaps. We can do our serifs as 2 strokes to get it going and then come back up. And then we can add our serif on the bottom. So just play around a little bit, and the rounded serif is going to be the one that most of the letters are going to start with. And start getting a feel as well. If I just had a bad letter, how many strokes can I make before I need to refill my pen? Right? In this case, I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Had a bad one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and I had a bad one. So we're get the ink to flow again. We want to keep our pen flat with the whole nib touching the surface so we get full width letters. All right. Or if our pen angle changes as we write, then the line's thickness will change as we write. I'm going to try a very dramatic example here. I'm going to start at a very steep angle. As I come down, I'm going to rotate my wrist and my hand. And so we can see here we're starting here and we're coming down. And we end up with a curve in our line, but there's also this thickness change. And it's hard to get that straight line if our hand is changing. So if we see this kind of wobbling in our letter stroke, as we're trying to make our straight lines, like here I'm trying to use my fingers, my edges don't get as crisp, I get wobbliness in my line, the thickness and the thinness of the line change. So remember, I said it earlier, we want our stroke to come primarily from our shoulder. We're not moving our fingers a lot. We're not moving our wrist a lot. It's coming from the shoulder, and we're getting really long lines. Practice making some long lines, because if we can get the long lines straight, then making shorter lines straight is going to be easy. All right. Let's work on some guidelines. From our contact point right here, we're going to turn our blade up against the side, at the blade, the tip of the nib, up at 90 degrees, and we're going to make a box. Come down, and we're going to make a box. We're going to come up, and we're going to make a little tick mark and up. And what that's going to do for us is we now have 4 pin widths marked out. With our foundational hand, we're going to be working with pin widths or an X height of 4. So then get our straight edge and across our writing surface, we're going to, I might need some new. All right, got some new lead in there. All right. We're going to draw a line across our page at the bottom of those boxes, and we're going to draw a line at the top of those boxes. Remember, our contact point, our comfortable point was the middle of that. So our comfortable point, we have 2 boxes below, 2 boxes above. Then get your pen again. Load it up with ink again if you need to. Notice I just dropped ink on my guide sheet. It's another benefit of having the guide sheet, but ideally you won't do this over your guide sheet, but maybe off to the side a little bit. Because if this was a finished piece and I dripped at the bottom of my guide sheet, it would get all over the page. Okay, so from our baseline, I'm going to add 3 more. 1, 2, 3 more boxes. And from the ascender line, we're going to add 1, 2, 3 boxes. All right. Normally I'd let this ink dry, but I'm moving kind of quickly. I want to get this video out to you. So we're going to draw our line. And actually, with the paper moving, I allowed that line to change. So we're going to, oh, that one was about right. We're going to come from the bottom of this box, and we draw our line there. So that's one way that we get our lines. To figure out the letter sizes, we have our X height, which is 4, ascenders, which are 3, descenders, which are 3. We're going to continue with our vertical lines, but we want to this time do them the length and the height that letters will be. So from here, I'm going to try to go from the ascender to the baseline. I'm going to start with a rolled serif, make a vertical line down, and a serif coming out. And I want to do 2, 3, do that till I get, a few that you're happy with before we move on. I want serifs that look fairly consistent. All right. And I want to watch my pen angle. If you look at the tops of these serifs, the entry points, the angles on all of these entrance points are the same. The exits of these serifs are the same, not just among themselves, but they're also the same as the top entrance serif. That's another sign that we can see if we're changing our pen angle during our letter, then this angle and this angle will be different, and we want them all to be the same. Once I can go from the ascender to the descender line, I'm going to then go from the X height line down to the baseline and make a full length there. This is getting comfortable in the space that we're going to be doing our writing. We're paying attention to keeping our pen angle the same, straight vertical lines the best we can. Serifs are looking the same. We have some long ones. Let's do a couple short ones, which are going to be from the X height line down to the baseline. And as I'm doing this, we're going to also try to do it, work on our spacing control a little bit, where I want them to be somewhat evenly spaced if I can. So we're adding small skills and small considerations as we go through our practice. Let's do some pen changes, and we can practice some boxes by coming down. Time for more ink. As I'm talking, I'm not paying as close of attention as I often do to my ink flow coming out of my pen. You'll be able to get a feel and a rhythm. All right, so with my pen flat, I'm going to come straight down and then come across. Now I'm going to come across the top, but I want to watch my spacing so that I can try to get a vertical stroke that will end right here. I come across, and I'm watching the pen angle, and I come down. Notice this stroke coming across the bottom is very thin. The one across the top is a little bit fatter, and I didn't quite catch this corner right, so we're going to do that again. Getting our pen flat. Cross, and flat. Change our pen angle. Get going with a straight line and come across. Now I have this angle here where I ended this stroke. I want to end there again. Now, one of the things I can look here and I can eyeball, and I can see on my page how far across I'm going to go. And looking ahead and where your form is going to be a skill to develop. I'm going to make a narrower box here. If we go steeper, we're going to practice some boxes. Once we have some boxes, let's try some curves. We're going to try to make a circle or an O. We're going to start with our top right tip on the line, and we're going to come around. We're going to make a curve there. Wasn't quite full width, which is a sign again that we need more ink. All right. I'm not going to draw another set of lines, but you might want to. If I had a little bit more time, I probably would. But I want to get good shapes, good curves, full width as I'm getting that movement. Now notice, if I start here and I come to the left a little bit, and then I begin my downstroke as I curve around, notice I can get a thinner start to that curve. I want to get several smooth strokes with my pen angle. Then I'm going to go the other direction. Can I get smooth curves? Can I put those two together to make a circle? Ending with those 2 points, so I have a thin point of transition. Kind of makes a kind of a football shape in there. I'll make a thinner one here. Right? You can get a football shape in your letter. So we're just practicing that until you get comfortable. Once we have a good feel for all those vertical lines, we make our boxes. We are checking our serifs, trying to make our pen angles the same. When you have your vertical lines, practice some curves, some lower halves, some upper halves, and just practice that for a few days, and you will see that this will become much better very quickly. And it's all about learning to control your ink flow, keeping your pen loaded, using your brush to keep things neat. When you're done, you want to make sure that you wash your pen with at least some water, because we don't want the ink to dry on our nib. I hope you're enjoying this series, and I know it might seem a little slow right now. We're doing a lot of talking about calligraphy, but we have yet to actually make any letters with our dip pen. My goal is to give you a solid foundation of information with individual skills that we will use when we get to the actual letters. Practice, practice, and practice, and get these fundamentals down. 20 minutes a day is going to do wonders for helping you establish your pen control. Don't sit down and just practice for hours right away. A little short practice and then resting will help your mind assimilate the practice that you're doing. If you're going to do multiple sessions in a day, I would suggest waiting at least a few hours in between your sessions to give your mind a rest. We can overlook that part, but it is important to let our mind rest and filter and process what we are learning. It's all about pen control right now. Get the ink on the page smoothly and crisply. As I'm building up the series and the channel, you would help me out if you subscribe, hit the bell, and give me a thumbs up. And leave comments below, especially if you have questions as you practice or things I can do to help you learn better. This has been a learning experience for me, learning my technology a little bit more and trying to improve the quality of my videos and show you what you need to see. Any feedback that you have about the quality of the videos themselves or what I can do to teach you better, I want to hear. I'm still trying to decide what to do for that giveaway of the packet of 5x7 sheets of pergaminata. If you have any ideas, let me know below in the comments. I'm thinking one option is to maybe do a page on Facebook, and you can leave pictures of your work and your progress, and those that post a picture will be entered into a drawing. But I don't know if everybody watching does Facebook or wants to do Facebook, and I don't want to cut somebody out unintentionally from that drawing. I want to find a way for you to show me your work and participate with these videos and have a chance at that resource. I hope to be posting the next video tomorrow. I'm going to film it tonight, but I'm learning, and some of these are taking a little bit longer than I thought they would. The next video is going to be about page layout, how we prepare our page to begin our practice. Well, again, it's little steps and information. I'm trying to give you a skill to practice and then some more information. So keep practicing your pen control. We'll do the video on setting up the page, the layout. It should probably be a shorter video. And then we'll get into our actual letter formation and making the letters with our pen. And then we're going to be finally moving, and I think we're going to be moving a lot quicker once we get down to our actual writing. So as always, I hope that you stay safe, keep learning, and be kind and helpful to those around you. Bye.